Hi guys, I hope you're okay. I hope you're safe and you're feeling uh, fine at least during these hard times of quarantine and social distancing. And I hope somehow these online class can help you to take your mind out of all this going on right now. As you've seen in the resolution of the Dean, of UCA's Dean, we need to have some online classes and activities. So every, every time when it's possible, I'm gonna tell you guys when we have some kind of activity. We're gonna continue our classes, which I said we wouldn't do because we couldn't register these classes, and now we can. We're gonna register in a kind of a report, you know. So, but remember, stay safe, stay home. I know some of you are still working and need to. Sometimes we all need to go outside to buy groceries or whatever. But I hope you're protected. You're taking all the measures necessary, at this time. So, as I told you in the WhatsApp group, we're going to talk about the conceptual metaphor theory. Why I'm talking about this theory again? Because some of you didn't watch, couldn't make it into the Skype session we had some time ago. So, as many of the students didn't have the opportunity to participate, so now I'm video taping this class, right? Recording this class, video taping this. So I'm recording this class for you guys. And if you have any questions, we will set a date to take any doubts, any questions you might have about this topic. Well, first of all, we're going to start discussing the concept of metaphor and how metaphor was seen in the traditional view and in the cognitive linguistics view. And what kind of view is that from the cognitive linguistics? Is the one that is available at the book of at Lakoff and Johnson's book, right? Which is called Metaphors We Live By. I think I will send the link for you guys for the book in English, but this book is also available in Portuguese. Metáforas da Vida Cotidiana. This book is from 2003. It's a very nice book and really interesting. It can help you so much with your research involving the idioms, right? The idiomatic expressions. So first of all, what is a metaphor? I'm gonna send you the slides, the same slides that I usually teach, so you can take any doubts you have. But what is a metaphor? It's poetically calling something else. It's like when Shakespeare says, "Juliet is the sun," right? He's using poetry to describe Juliet. So he's comparing her to the sun, and as the scene is in a very romantic way, we know that he's comparing to the good qualities of the sun, right? Uh, as seen traditionally in books, in Portuguese books, a metaphor is a figure of speech in which one thing is compared to another by saying that one is the other, right? And that's where the problem, because okay, metaphor is a comparison, but there are two figures of speech that concern comparison. One is the metaphor, and the other is the simile, right? So you need to understand the difference. Actually, it's very simple. Metaphor is when you say Juliet is the sun. A simile is when you say Juliet is like the sun. When you say Juliet is like the sun, when you use a simile, you're making a very explicit comparison. But when you use a metaphor, you say that one is the other. So Juliet is, sun. That's the difference about metaphor and simile, right? According to the Britannica Encyclopedia, and here I'm reading, I'm quoting, metaphor is a figure of speech that implies comparison between two unlike entities. As simile, an explicit comparison is signaled by the uses of words like or as. And that's the thing also, the difference between metaphor and simile. In metaphor, you try to pick two things that are not quite so similar, but you draw a comparison between them. For example, Juliet is a person and the sun is a star. So it's two different entities, very unlike entities, and not similar entities. But when you create the metaphor and you make this implicit comparison, Juliet as the sun, you're bringing them closer, right? Um, Now we're going to discuss the difference between the traditional view about metaphor and the cognitive linguistics view about metaphor. For example, it's basically 5 points. So we're going to get the 5 points from the traditional view and compare them to how the cognitive linguistics interpreted these 5 points. First of all, the traditional view about metaphor comes from Aristotle. You probably heard about this very important Greek guy that discussed about politics and art and so many things like the Greeks love to do. So Aristotle talked about metaphor and he explained metaphor using 5 points. The first of them says metaphor is a property of words. So metaphor is a linguistic phenomenon. Keep that in mind. So metaphor is a property of words, is a linguistic phenomenon. Two, metaphors are used for artistic, for rhetorical purpose. It's the same thing when Shakespeare says, okay, all the world is a stage. This has a rhetorical purpose. This has an artistical objective, that, a point that he's trying to make, right? So according to Aristotle, metaphors are used for artistic and rhetorical purposes to make things prettier. Let's see that. Three, metaphor is based on resemblance between two entities that are compared and identified. So here we have something a little different. Aristotle said that when we do metaphors, we do because these entities, they have some kind of resemblance, necessarily some kind of resemblance. Okay, but we just discussed the common view about metaphor and we've seen that's quite different, right? Four, metaphor is a conscious and deliberate use of words. You must have a special talent to be able to do it and to do it well. And it's usually done only by the great poets. So, to Aristotle, you would only be able to properly use a metaphor if you were indeed a poet. And five, we can do without metaphors. We use them for special effects, right? And it's not part of everyday human communication. So, according to Aristotle, metaphors are special, rhetorical, artistical, beautiful effects that we use, and we use them to draw comparisons between entities that have some kind of resemblance. And we only do it when we are great poets because it's the only way to do it well, to do this linguistic phenomenon. Well, now let's see how Lakoff and Johnson, our friends from cognitive linguistics, which is amazing. If you don't know, if you haven't studied, it's very interesting. Uh, have debated these 5 points from Aristotle. Well, in their book, Metaphors We Live By, Lakoff and Johnson, they say that first of all, metaphor, it's not a property of words. It's not a linguistic phenomenon. Metaphor is a property of concepts, right? It's not of words, it's about concepts. Well, it's not for any reason that their theory, Lakoff and Johnson's theory, is called conceptual metaphor theory. So, um, is actually a property of concepts. Two, the second point, the function of metaphor is to better understand certain concepts and not some aesthetic, some artistic purpose. So, indeed, we don't use metaphors to write or to speak prettily. It's not about that. It's not about write and speak in a pretty way. It's about to make, how can I say, to make ourselves clearer, to make people able to understand what we want to express, to try to explain certain abstract, especially abstract concepts better, right? Three, metaphor is often not based on similarity, right? And actually, the view nowadays, I'm not going to say traditional view because traditional view is from Aristotle, but the common sense view is that metaphor is a way to draw comparisons between two unlike entities, and that's what Lakoff and Johnson believe too. They say that it's usually a comparison drawn is often based not on similarity, but in we have what we have is two unlike entities. Four, metaphor is used effortlessly in everyday life by ordinary people, and not just the special ones, the very talented ones, the ones chosen by God to use it. I use metaphor every day. You use metaphor every day. We all do it, especially when we think about all the idiomatic expressions, the idioms we use all the time, which are based on metaphors. So, yeah, it's simple, it's effortless, right? Everybody can do it, not just the artists, not just the great poets. And five, and that's the most interesting part, metaphor is an inevitable process of human thought and reasoning. So, metaphor is part of human thought and everyday language. According to this theory, and I think it's a beautiful way to think about language, we think using metaphors, especially when we think about abstract concepts. And if you think about it, Piaget, for example, Piaget said that the complete understanding of abstract concepts only finishes around 12 years old. So it's a whole process that it takes for us to understand. It's easier to understand concrete objects, things I can see, like an apple, right? It's very easy to understand concrete uh, uh, concepts, objects. But to understand abstract concepts, that's a lot harder. So in a way to understand and also to explain to other people better about these abstract concepts, we use metaphors. And I think it's a beautiful way to think, that we think through metaphors. And of course, if we think through metaphors, we speak using them. We are able to speak using them too, right? For example, how the conceptual metaphor works. And now we're going to start to actually talk about the theory of Lacan and Johnson, the conceptual metaphor theory, right? For example, if we get the conceptual metaphor, life is a journey. And that's always like that. You have a very abstract concept, in this case, life, and you have a more concrete concept, which is a journey. Everybody travels, everybody commutes to work, commutes to school, goes around. Well, not now, but we're not doing that now so much, but we all do it. And this kind of conceptual metaphor this concept, this way of thinking, this way of understanding life, that life is a journey that licenses expressions such as he'll go places in life. She's never going to let anyone get in her way. I am at a crossroads in my life. They've gone through a lot. I'm where I want to be in life. The same thing happens in Portuguese. We use many expressions that are clear instances of this metaphor, life as a journey. When we say seguindo o caminho da minha vida, chegando no fim da linha, right? These kinds of expressions, they are instances of this metaphor, life's a journey. Uh, Now going more about conceptual metaphor theory. Understanding is to understand one conceptual domain in terms of another conceptual domain. As I said, when we think or talk about life in terms of journey or arguments in terms of war, right? Uh, we are saying that conceptual domain, source domain, and the other is the target domain. What is the source? The source is the more concrete concept, the one that you are drawing comparisons from. In the metaphor, life is a journey. The journey is the source of understanding, and life is the target. Life is what I want to understand through this metaphor. Life is my target. It's what I want to understand. It's the more abstract concept I'm trying to understand. Now, so you can understand through more examples. These examples are all on the slides I'm giving to you. Okay, so you can check them there too. For example, argument is war. I'm gonna read some examples to you. Your claims are indefensible. He attacked every weak point in his argument. Her criticism was right on target. I demolished his argument. I've never won an argument with you. He shut down all your arguments. If you think about it, every time we think about discussions, we think about like as a competition, like as a war, right? There's a winner and there is a loser. One very nice metaphor, which I loved and I talked about in class when we were still facing each other, right? Meeting face to face, is love is a journey. I love this metaphor because it's a clear directive from life is a journey, and in a way equates love to life, right? Like love meaning, the meaning of life. I think that's beautiful. So love is a journey, ideas are food, time is money. All these are conceptual metaphors that are present in Lakoff and Johnson's book, and that license many, many expressions we use every single day, right? The way we understand things. Um, I don't want to make this class long because it's our first experience. There are many examples in the slides, on the slides. For example, ideas are food. When someone says that needs time to digest what the other person said, I need time to digest. When you say this, when you say something like that, you're actually thinking of ideas in terms of food. So you're using a conceptual metaphor. The same way that when you say that we reached this relationship is on the rocks, oh, this relationship is a dead end street, you're thinking of love relationship in terms of a journey, in terms of a journey with beginning point, middle, and end, right? So I'm gonna end right now, and if you have any doubts, we're gonna set a date so we can discuss about them. And I hope it helps you with all the research concerning the idioms. And I also hope that you read the book, Lakoff and Johnson's book, Metaphor to Live By, which is really interesting, and apply it to your research. So bye. Have a nice Easter, really, really good Easter. I hope you're all with your family. Unfortunately, not probably not with friends, but I hope you're well. Bye and keep in touch.